what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream and be judged from within, hunted by a power that cannot see past my skin. My views are viewed as ignorant, my truth always denied. My history is shrouded in a spider web of lies. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. I love when they said that America be true to what you said on paper, right? But we know that's a lie. But I'm telling you, man, I am so honored this morning. Dr. Bradley was off and was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do these 3 hours by myself, and then all of a sudden it's like weeds, they start popping up. Yeah, we want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guaranteed Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. Like I said, when I said that, folks, it's a joke, folks. It's like the black men's choir here this morning. Pastor Hobbs is gonna set the tone, and then we're gonna. So to my right, we have Cliff Bennett, who's come in studio. Eric Kennedy is giving me a call. And then Rhodes, I'm like, wow, y'all both come on in. Like I said, this is the front row, and in the back, our backup choir, we have Pastor Hobbs there. So, quite an honor. So, Dr. Bradley, I hope if you're watching, man, pay attention. This is an audition. and the good thing is most of them are already almost tanned up. So, so they take your spot over there. No, but we appreciate it. Like I said, Dr. Bradley is off today, enjoying some time with his lovely wife, Erica. So he'll be back in with us hopefully next weekend. And gentlemen, you're always welcome to come back as well. But we still have on the line Dave Surlis from SOS Save Our Schools. Dave, thank you for being gracious enough to hold on for a few minutes. As I said, the calls have been coming in. And folks have been coming in. So I'm not sure what we're getting more of. But there's every time you're on, Dave, there's quite an interest in this. But I'm hoping that this interest spills over with people coming to help. That's why we want to continue to have you on. Yeah. Not just to talk about this, to beat this dead horse, but to get you the support that you need and deserve for such a worthwhile cause. This is our investment. We invest in our homes. We take care of our home, but we need to invest in making sure that people are not just getting elected so they can continue to allocate for pay raises for themselves at the council, but actually doing the job and the work. Because I had one of them disrespectfully say to us in law enforcement, I wouldn't do that job for the money you get paid. Well, then pay us.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Pay us what?
Wow.
Right, exactly.
But but don't they get paid more than you guys?
They do. Their base salary is more. We have to work. Their base salary. There should not be anyone on the council making more than a frontline first responder. And I'm not saying that out of any prejudice or self-serving, but it is not as difficult to be a city councilor, particularly when you have your staff doing most of the work, if not all, right, than someone who's actually answering these calls. Because I tell people dial 911, they don't dial 311 when they have a problem. If they want something immediate attention to their problem. But caller, good morning. I hope we have the matter cleared up and Dave has been kind enough to hold on to take your question. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning. And Barry Lawton, who is running for City Council District 3, is that correct?
Yeah, more like running for my life, Larry.
Okay. So I know you've been listening. Dave, Barry Lawton is a former school teacher, so I think you bring a lot to this conversation that Dave has been out there with. I don't know if you're familiar with SOS. Dave started this Save Our Schools because he saw a problem that needed to be addressed in someone who has not gotten enough help. But I know you're running for City Council.
I'm familiar with his work, and I'm enjoying the conversation. Yeah. That you're having. I think I'm calling in more as a contributor to the topic rather than to talk about city council stuff, but I will be happy to answer any question about that. Yep. But you can invite me on your show, Larry, and then we can have a long conversation.
Listen, we have a few more seats here, so you can come on. These folks invite themselves. And we're happy for that, because this is at the round table with MAMLEO. This is not the MAMLEO round table, right? So we welcome the community, and we feel very honored, honestly, that the community sees this as a catalyst, as a way to get the message out in a way that we don't. As Dave alluded to earlier, a lot of them, you got to pay for a subscription to these news outlets now. You don't have to pay for this. You can we pay to be here, right? So we can try to give folks a voice. We pay to allow that to happen. And we're very gracious and appreciative of the MAMLEO and our sponsor, Guaranteed Rate Mortgage. And if you want to be a sponsor, you can give us a call at 617-282-0685 to be part of this, to keep this broadcast going, because clearly there is a need for it, to have a voice of the voiceless. So with that being said, Barry, what did you want to say? Because I don't want to keep.
Well, I would say, first of all, you have hung in here, and Larry, you're one of the first policemen that I actually saw that showed courage, and I couldn't believe that you stood up when you had the leadership of MAMLEO, and you were up against all odds. So if you think about it, that leadership in MAMLEO and also your role on Boston Praise Radio, you were ahead of your time. But I think time has caught up. and I think it's our time now. I want to get to the talking about young people and what they should do and what alternatives they have. I know when I was young, at the age of 7, when we had to pick up and move to Germany, I wanted to work. There was no job for me other than being an altar boy. And so I did that in Germany. I did that in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. But when I got to North Carolina, I developed the entrepreneurial spirit. I sold greeting cards during the summer, got them in October, delivered them to clients. I sold holly. I sold mistletoe. I did whatever I could as a young entrepreneur. And then I moved on to cutting grass on bases. And I think a lot of young people right now would love to work. And, we need to be innovative and have programs where they might be able to work.
Well, let me just address that, like I said, because I want to let Dave and Barry, if you can hold on, because I want to keep you, because the next segment we want to talk about, I want to get your input on that with our guest in studio here, Cliff Bennett. But, I attend these meetings, and there are quite a few jobs that have gone unfilled with young people this year. They have more jobs than they have young people that have an interest in them. It's not that the jobs are not available. They're just choosing, unfortunately, to exhibit this bad. They choose to be over at the mall terrorizing and victimizing people there for the day than to go out and work. We're seeing less people requesting work permits for the age-appropriate jobs. So I get it. They're definitely the ones who want to work, but there are a lot of them who just aren't interested in anything except doing what they're doing.
But we are generally looking at young people age 16 and above, right?
No, they've waived. Younger people have. They just need to get a physical, get approval from a checkup from their doctor, and they're able to work, because there are so many jobs out there now. People are looking to hire, and they're waiving a lot of those conditions with the approval of the parent.
There's an age limit, though, right? Larry, there's an age limit.
The age has been lowered, so I think it's 14 or something. So it's not just 16 anymore, and that's with the parental permission, as well as a sign off from your physician for you to be able to work. That there are no.
So, like I'm saying, in my story that I was explaining to you, I wanted to be and emulate my parents and other adults too. I wanted to work too. Waiting. I mean, literally, I was 7 years ahead of time before I could have legally gone to work in Massachusetts. But I was ready to work, and a lot of people that have their young children, like contractors, people like that, they have their children work with them, so they learn the trade, from very early on. But just having a wide variety of opportunities and not just be stuck into one structure. Be innovative. And I think a lot of the contributing factors to this, Larry, gentlemen, is that we don't have an elected school committee. So that means the people that have the majority of the people in the school district don't have the power or the voice.
Right. So let's
have any influence.
Let's have Dave weigh in this because I want to let him go. I don't want to tie his morning. But that's a point where the voters voted for an elected school committee, and there's been pushback from the mayor who's saying that she's on the fence where she even kind of maybe a hybrid. Where that's not what people voted for. They voted to have an elected school committee. Boston is the only city that does not have an elected school committee. Go figure that, right? That there's no politics involved in that. Is that short of that? The school committee is basically a rubber stamp of what the mayor wants because they're appointed by the mayor. And people say, oh, that's not any major issues, any major changes. If the mayor is not on board with it, regardless of who the mayor is, it's not going to happen. So this is why we need accountability in that. Dave, before we let you go, if you want to comment on that about the elected school committee, I want to hold Barry for our next segment if he's available, and also give out your contact information, how folks can support what you're doing.
Yeah, good. No, I appreciate that input, Barry. Yeah, I think that's right. That the voters have spoken, and I think that they need to be listened to, just like parents are speaking in polling data, telling the top officials what they want. So I think they need to be heard. I think the constituents need to be heard. I think that's very important.
That's what the government's supposed to do, right? Represent the people, right?
Yeah, I appreciate Barry's service as a teacher. One of the things we're hearing from teachers is they're concerned about school safety deeply because it directly affects their work.
And
many of them are not happy with the current state of situation.
They're leaving. A lot of them are leaving.
Right. Teacher retention and so on is a difficult. We're in a difficult place right now, and school safety is at the foundation of that. And but they're also saying, hey, we can't speak out. Right. We can't publicly speak out because that impact our job. But what I would say to teachers and city employees across the city who also may not feel like they can speak out on some of these issues because of their jobs, you can go into the voting booth and you can vote. And there's great power there. So make your vote known. Let's hold the candidates to account for serious proposals around school safety, that school safety needs to be a priority. If they're not talking about it, if they're not engaging it in their policy discussions, then maybe that's not a candidate who's relevant to our current situation. Our contact information at SOS is we have a website, bostonsos.com. You can go there and get a sense of our work, our advocacy. We've been trying to make public stories that come in the Boston media relative to school safety so people can be aware of all those issues. I mean, one issue we just had was a woman in her 30s enrolling and attending Boston Public Schools, 3 different high schools. Now, if that doesn't alarm parents, one of the subtexts of that story, at least initially, was part of the investigation was this potentially a sex trafficking thing, is something I read in one of the media stories. Again, very serious. So how could that happen? What are the protocols in place to prevent that from happening again? So on. So that's on our, some of those are on our website to draw attention to them. You can connect in and we will put you on a list and update you with information. We're going to be doing some outreaches in the community, handing out literature directly to folks and engaging people in our neighborhoods about school safety, and hopefully we can build a coalition and some relationships.
I'm drafting all the folks in the room. So you have 5 volunteers here that we're willing. These men, including myself, are willing to step up. I'm volunteering their services for them. Excellent. They don't even know it's part of the work release program that I'm offering them. All right. So I have a van I have access to. We won't paint anything on it. So
do me a favor and get me the email so we can add them to our list. So
absolutely. I'll get the information.
Great. Thank you.
And Dave Surlis, I want to thank you for gracing me. Like I said, he is a regular here. I want to thank you for allowing us a little extra of your time this morning. And you always have a voice here at the round table with such an important matter that you're discussing.
Hey, thanks so much.
SOS.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. God bless.
All right, Barry. So it's Cliff Bennett is in studio with us. Was Eric Kennedy to my right, and Rhodes Pierre. Like I said, the Black Boys Men Choir is here, and Pastor Hobbs is a cappella over there. He's gonna put us all to shame, right? As I've heard him sing. So Cliff is going to be sponsoring an event called Getting It Off My Chest, a roundtable discussion about neighborhood change in Roxbury. It's going to be held July 29th, 2023 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 122 DeWitt Drive, in Boston, Mass. That's down near the old Madison Park complex there. It says, enjoy a free pancake breakfast. That'll get always food, always get people during the neighborhood discussion. So, Cliff, welcome to the roundtable. I know you call in. You're a frequent caller, but it's good to see you here in person.
Thank you.
First of all, getting it off my chest, what is it you want to get off your chest, and why now?
Why now? Okay, the reason why I say why now, we all need to get something off our chest.
Okay.
So this is near and dear to me. It's about displacement and gentrification in the city of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of black and brown people are being displaced, and the homeless rate in this city is out of control.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even get affordable housing. Well, Larry, what is affordable to you?
Well, see, that's the thing, right? Because we have a mortgage, right? So I still don't think it's affordable. But it was the only way that we could stabilize, right, what we were going to be paying. We know there's adjustment for taxes, but it's not as much as, and then we have somewhat control over that, because we are, as long as we keep this agreement with the bank, we're in good standing, right? But when you're going from neighborhoods that you're right, I know exactly what you're talking about, where the rents were, no one wanted to live, right?
No.
They weren't condoed out, right? And so someone was paying $900 now, and the landlord is saying, I can get $3,000 a month for that same apartment market rent. Mm-hmm. And that person's Section 8 certificate even won't allow that, right? And they can't pay your market rent. So that's the real problem. We're seeing, and look, it's nice seeing a diverse community,
right?
But there's a cost to that as well, because it's moving more in the direction. For full disclosure, I'm in the real estate business. I develop, and I've seen a lot of my customers don't look like me. I don't discriminate against them. They want to buy, and one of the questions I asked one of them, who recently bought a building that I renovated up in the Humboldt Avenue area, people call it H Block, and I asked at the closing, I said, just out of curiosity, why this neighborhood? Because I saw, as we were doing the development of the building, it was one white family that was living on the street. By the time we finished our project, there was 7. Not a problem with that. And this is a person who was a doctor at Brigham and Women's Hospital. And the second unit, because we converted the house into a two-unit condominium, the second floor was bought by a professor and his wife, who were teachers. And we asked the doctor at the closing, what was her reason? And she said, be honest with you, I was paying $4,500 for a 2-bedroom 2 blocks away from here in Jamaica Plain. Her mortgage is now less, and she said the neighborhood's changing, and she attributed to somewhat like the South End had been, where she's going to ride it up. And this was 3 years ago, and I went and looked at what that unit is worth now. She paid $600 for it. It's now worth close to $900,000. Wow. So she's gotten quite a return on her investment if she wants to. So I said it because
like Cora always says, marry the place, not the rate.
There you go.
There you go. Like you're going to be living there for 30 years, but you can always refinance.
Exactly. So Barry, you still with us? Did we lose Barry? Barry, you still with us? Did we lose Barry? Barry? I don't know if we lost. Okay, he's gone.
So really quickly, can we go backwards for a minute? Because you were talking about earlier how the youth don't want to work, seem to want to work. I don't find it's just the youth, because I just did the Lions Club.
Yeah.
They just had their international convention, and I was tasked to hire 300 people. They were paying $25 an hour, and as I'm taking phone calls and scheduling people and stuff, there are literally adults that, because the shifts were 11 hours. They were like, "Oh, that's too many hours. Can I work 4?"
Right.
They want to work 4 hours.
But your point, Eric, I know many a times you've called me and said, "Hey, I've got an abundance of jobs, right? There is something in people looking for employment." Everywhere you go now, it may not be the job you want, but there's jobs out there, right?
There's work.
And I tell people sometimes, you can't apply to be the CEO if you only have GED qualifications. It's just not going to work, right? So if you want to better your situation, you have to better your education, and you give people a reason to tell you no by not doing so, right? So you're absolutely right.
I call them bridge jobs. Work it until you find where you want to be, and just keep moving and moving.
I've had plenty of jobs prior to becoming, even as a young person. I worked in Woolworths, which people don't even know, but I mean, I've worked in places that I didn't want to.
Exactly.
But it helped at home, because my mom had 7 children, and there was only so much to go around, right? So if I wanted some of these things that I liked, I had to work And you and I were fortunate to have a mentor, Charlie Dickinson, who was the one that got me involved in real estate early on, that helped me to catapult to where today things are a lot better for me than they would have been had I just went to the strict having a job to try to support me and my family. I probably would be calling you up for one of those jobs. Barry, so this getting it off my chest, Cliff Bennett, is that this event is going to be taking place on July 29th from 11 to 1 p.m. at 122 DeWitt Drive. He's talking about the gentrification here in the city. Now, I know where you're running and where you live, that's a huge concern with your constituency as well. Is that not correct?
Oh, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. I mean, just the creation of the district was a major process, and I think exposed some of the weaknesses of the city council and democracy in Boston. I mean, bottom line is, this district is the most unique district in the city. And if we are able to pull the red segments, the purple segments, the blue segments together, for one common purpose, there's no reason that we have 8% to 20% turnout. We need to exercise. We're whimpering like a mouse when we should be roaring like a lion. We have about the same amount of people as we have in other districts.
So Barry, I want to interrupt you for a second, because when you just threw out those numbers, 8 to 10%, and do you know in your area how many people are eligible to vote? Or just an estimate of how many people are eligible to vote?
I'd say there's probably around 46,000. And I'd say I don't know. It's a large number,
right? And the reason, right? And the reason I asked that, because when you talk about, even if you went with the high number of 10%, right? You're talking about 4,600 people out of 40, and we wonder why situations are not changing or are getting better when that few people are involved. And the margins, just on the national level, right? And a lot of these races, they weren't in the tens of thousands. In Georgia, it was like 11,000 so these are slim margins, and you're right. Folks are now trying to, Massachusetts, even here in Boston, the redistricting is quite a firestorm, right? Because of, who's going to get, because look, this is politics, right? If you have a population then that's not voting, and you want to cut the lines and give me those folks, and I've got a block of people that are voting, I don't want your non-voters. I don't care what. It just doesn't make sense. So yes, I can understand why some of these people are fighting, saying, "Hey, don't give me the section of the city that's not voting and take away people that are." That hurts my chances of getting elected. Right?
As we all know, the basic thing is the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yes.
And we are not squeaking. No. And we are not squeaking together. We constitute a third of the city. I'll give you an example. For residential parking, there are approximately 125,000 resident parking permits granted. Right now, they're going through a major audit. But that's about it, about the amount. Dorchester has 12,000. Right? South Boston has 29,000.
Wow.
Alton Brighton has 24,000. Wow. And so, when you're talking about, what I'm talking about in running is representing all. There are a lot of residential parking areas that we should be having in Dorchester. And I know where I lived for 41 years and owned a home for 41 years. We never had residential parking. Right. And the reason that we have residential parking is to allow people that have to work every day, that they will be able to come home to a protected space, right, so they can go in and spend time with their families and eat and get back up and go. And that should be applied ubiquitously, right, all over the district. Right. So that simple type of work needs to be done. So right, when you're talking about political ideologies and all this, we basically need somebody at home, somebody right, who is a custodial person that makes sure that the city stays true to its word and treats everybody equal, every neighborhood right, equal. Right. And that's the push, and we're not going to be able to do that divided.
Right. To that point, though, Barry, when you just said about the residential parking, it made me think about the South End, right? Because one of the reasons why, if you knew someone down there, unless you didn't drive, you didn't go down there, because it's almost like a way of keeping people out, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have if you don't live there, or I want to come visit you, it's very limited visitor parking in those neighborhoods, and it's designed that way to keep people from driving and coming into those neighborhoods. The South End has been that way for a long time, so you didn't see many black people down here, because if you didn't know anyone that you could park in their backyard, which is very valuable real estate, you just stayed away from those neighborhoods. And I'm seeing them in neighborhoods now where because the landscape is changing, I'm seeing more resident parking signs popping up in neighborhoods that was not an issue before. Now it's becoming commonplace. But
Larry, when they created this district, they created a doozy, because part of this district has Ward 3, Precinct 15 in that area. So it's around the Boston Medical Center, East Berkeley, Harrison Avenue, all of that area. Well, those places now all have residential parking.
Right.
They all have residential parking. So when you look at the disparity in this district from one end to the other, that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in Dorchester would like everybody in Dorchester to have the same things that they are.
Yeah.
I mean, there seems to be some kind of fight that when you grant services or you grant attention to another geographic part in the district, that the other part is going to lose. That's not how it should work.
No, I agree.
And that goes back to the point of being a squeaky wheel together. I run to galvanize our voice.
So at that point, before we let you go, Barry, tell folks, how they can contact you and what it is that what office you're running for. So if folks want to reach out to you to help your campaign.
LawtonforDistrict3.com is how you can hook up with us.
Yeah.
You will find me all over the place all the time if you're a commuter. I regularly visit those stations, but we are getting the word out. And as you know, I've run before, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood and been working for many years in many organizations, not just teaching young people, but working with unions and doing all that stuff. So I'm very excited. I'm very optimistic. It's a great challenge, but it's not insurmountable.
Exactly. I did get your text. I'm going to give you a call after the show. We're definitely going to catch up, and I will definitely make sure that I take care of my end with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thank you. Appreciate your kind words, sir. Thank you. Folks, you're listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. The calling number 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. So, Cliff, I want to go back to you, sir. Getting it off my chest. What was I know you kind of alluded to that, you see gentrification. Some would say it's kind of too late. That train has left the station, unlike the TV. It's actually on track, right?
Right. It's always.
In that it's almost too late to turn it back around, because what I want to do is also bring Rhodes in, because he's a financial expert and he's not here to talk about that. But I'm saying is that a lot of what he's been talking about over the years, and he's been educating me and my family, is that this could have shored up, like I said, insurance, home ownership, and just investment. They could have shored up people's financial situations where they didn't have to be a spectator in home ownership, where now they're being displaced in alarming numbers.
Well, when I say get it off my chest, it goes back to my family. Because when my family came from Honduras, they settled in Roxbury.
Okay.
And when they settled in Roxbury, it was a different time.
You want to hear that Barry White voice.
A different time and a different place. But as my grandmother's generation got pushed out through gentrification, I had to do something. I had to wake people up, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, come on.
Right.
We could go to parties, we could go to festivals, we could go to this, we could go to that. But when it comes to our own community, we don't take responsibility. We don't own nothing. We don't have nothing.
Right. But we want to portray that we do, because you've talked about, you've come on the show. That's how we met. Was you talked about the complexities of being Hispanic from Honduras and being black here, and sometimes people say things not knowing your real culture, and being disparaging, that we're fighting with each other and getting nothing out of it, right? Everyone's bobbing in agreement, because that's what we spend more time with. Like I say, if I said right now we're giving away anything, we don't have a problem with giving away things. Or if there is a new line of Nike sneakers that are $3,000, the line would be wrapped around the people to give away that $3,000 that they don't have. They be trying to figure out how they can get it. But if you say to them, well, your child is struggling in school, and I know someone that tutors, and it's only $20 an hour. What for? You know, like they don't see the value in that. But this portrayal of, look at me, I'm a fashionista.
Well, it goes back to again, like the slave mentality of Sunday's best, and then being able to have the Sunday off, and the master giving them the best
Dressed
clothes,
to the nine.
And then so. Then it came into the the dozens of like, look, my master dressed me better than you, and we still have that mentality of like of superficial materialistic things of being attached to value.
Pastor Hobbs is exempt because one of the things we're talking about here.
We ain't talking about you now.
No, but like we to attach value to material things, and we don't internalize the value that we have within ourselves.
So I want to hear from Eric, but I want to ask you while we have you, is that, so why is it that people haven't embraced the financial aspect of teaching our kids financial wealth, and because it's not taught, it's not encouraged, and again in this country it's like it's taboo to talk about people's money or wealth and stuff, but it affects every aspect of your life. Like a drunken sailor.
Yeah. So it's good to talk about it, and as a matter of fact, 17 states it's mandated. Only 5 states get a passing grade. Massachusetts, it's actually mandated to be taught before you leave high school, but it's one of the laws that they don't enforce.
Wow.
Okay. So it's selective enforcement.
They took out civics, so it's mandated, but it's not
enforced.
Yeah. But teaching financial, you can't teach what you don't know. Like, I mean, if someone's going to teach finances in schools, okay, where's your yacht? Where's your mansion? Where's this?
Well, no, you don't. But to teach it, I mean, again.
See, one of the books I read early in
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So you learn the difference between assets and liabilities.
It should be required reading.
Yes.
I'm not pushing it. It should be required because what you get out of that. I remember when Ross Perot, he's now deceased, he was running for president, and this is a guy that was worth $2 billion, and this is going back 20 years or plus, right?
Yeah.
So think about $2 billion today is still substantial, but back then it was really. I mean, I forgot what he owned, and they comment he drove at the time
a regular car, Chevy.
an Oldsmobile, like a car that was probably worth. I mean, he could have been driving anything or had drivers, right?
Yes.
And he said, "This is not an investment."
Right.
I'm like, wait a minute, if this billionaire does see that, because he used to laugh at me at my cars. Like, I drive a 2005 Ford F-150, and people say, why? I said, because the wheels are still on it and it still runs, right?
Exactly.
And why am I going to go out to? Because don't tell me a beat up ride is better than a dressed up walk, right? So unless you pass the Hobbs. His dressed up walk is better than my beat up ride. But I like to pick up my brother. He knows it's out of love. But I say this because we're like, even here, Charles Clemens used to talk about it on Touch, how we spend over $1 billion in our community, right? And we have nothing to earn. Like past Minister Don used to say, in our community, in the Jewish community, their money goes through it at least 10 times before it leaves.
Yes.
And in the black community, the dollar doesn't even spend the night.
But like he says, we own nothing.
Right.
We don't own businesses. Right. We don't own homes. Right. So it's like, if we don't own our homes and we don't own businesses, like, how are we saying that we're in the community?
Right. So I want to, Eric, because you've been impacted by that. You rented, right? And I remember you calling me looking for, because people found out what you were living was worth it. So how does that impact someone like yourself who is, trying to acquire that, but yet it's even more difficult now, right?
It's tough because life happens, and you start saving and saving and saving, and you with that end goal.
Are you able to save with this cost?
You really can't. You really can't. And then like you put in that effort, and then life happens, and something happens, like you have to pay for someone's funeral, like I had to do. You had the, stuff like that, and there goes those savings.
That's why you buy life insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but lots of people buy it and they let it lapse because they can't. If I have to decide between maybe getting food or paying the policy, the premium, a lot of times people, even if they do, they're gonna still buy more food than they need or whatever.
Well, I would say there are resources in the community to get the food. Like if you're really thinking of like maintaining or leaving a legacy or something for your
financial
family. Yeah. And then one of the things that people forget to do or neglect to do is having a will. Okay, so a lot of times people don't understand.
They have a will. The will to spend.
But unfortunately, it's like if you don't have that, like you said, your grandma, like all the work that they've done, everything that they've accumulated will dissipate. It'll go to Uncle Sam and go to the lawyers because that one piece of paper was like you get to the finish line, finish it by getting a will, and talk to a lawyer or someone or some sort of financial advisor to kind of figure out if you need a trust as well to put the assets in there, because unfortunately Medicare, Medicaid, the way they sell it to you as a bill of goods, you don't understand. You have to be impovered in order to
You have to be destitute to need it.
You have to have nothing in your name basically in order to enjoy those benefits, and people don't understand that. They're like, wait a second,
But see, that's what the financial literacy. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. Listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. In studio, my brother Cliff Bennett, Eric Kennedy, Rose Pierre. What a talented line. And Pastor Hobbs is over there smiling from ear to ear, showing off those. He can do a Colgate commercial. So Cliff is going to be sponsoring Getting It Off My Chest, a roundtable discussion about neighborhood change in Roxbury. It's going to be held at 122 DeWitt Drive, July 29th from 2023 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Enjoy a free pancake breakfast. That ought to bring some folks out just for the free meal. So, Cliff, what's the expectation that you hope to get jump started from this? Because, again, this is great, but it's not news, and I don't mean that to be disparaging. I mean, like, this has been coming like a tidal wave,
right.
And folks have just been calling the moving truck and leaving. They haven't really understood this, just like we were talking about the schools. This doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency with our folks. How can we get that jump started?
Because we don't put it out there. We don't put information out there. You hear the information, but you don't go to the information.
Okay, so how do we get them to consume it like they will with these pancakes? Because
they will.
It is. There is a lot of it out there. We've been here probably MAMLEO, other than what Pastor Wall and Pastor Hobbs, it's probably one of the longest running broadcasts consistently on Boston Praise Radio. We were in a little room there, and I'm looking at how this has grown and how we have grown. So we have walked the talk, and we continue, not because of anything. We don't get paid to do this, because we understand the importance of educating our folks. But we're trying to spoon feed people. Like every year before school started, we knew that castor was coming out, whether you liked it or not. Right here, can we like it, right? No one liked it, right? But you had to stand in line, right? The age of, went by, and no one avoided it, right. So, but we can't spoon feed everyone. That castor, they said it was good for you. I don't know, but how do we get folks to embrace themselves? Because I can't want it more for you than you want it yourself.
You have to have the determination and the drive to want it for yourself. You have to look at
how do we get them there.
We get them there by education. We get them there by.
Where's the education come from? And I'm not being facetious, because what I'm saying is that we think the schools are educating. That's not happening, right? So where's this education going to take place?
It comes from,
I'd say it starts at home.
Yeah,
Malcolm X said it, like, you cannot trust the slave master to be the one that educates you.
I get that, but how can I teach you, as Eric alluded to, how can I teach you what I don't know? Right, I'm fortunate. My wife is a school teacher. We're very blessed that my wife is at home. She has a master's degree. She actually tutors some of the kids' families in the neighborhood, right? Because they understand her skill set and they can afford to pay her what she's deserving of. But a lot of these parents, education is something they value.
Exactly. So you've got to change that whole value system, that whole mindset, and make it that it's something that they want and need, that they have, that they want to encourage people. Because again, like the whole thing of like, unfortunately, when I first moved here, like from Montreal, Canada, okay, the if you were the nerd and the geek, you were the alpha male in Canada. You came over here, you were the jock or the gangster. Then you were the top dog in the school, like, you know. And the nerd and the geek was like, step aside or whatever. Like, you book smart, you can read.
That's when you
words.
As a nerd and a geek, that's when you partner up with the sports people.
Exactly.
That's when you can go hang out with the school police officers. But can I learn how to play chess?
But to that point, gentlemen, the Boston Globe did a story probably almost 10 years or more when they first came out, and they highlighted the net worth of Black Boston. They were specific.
$8.
They didn't say Hispanic, people of color. They said Black Boston was $8 compared to $247,000. They did a recent update of a couple of years now. This goes by quick. Our situation hasn't changed. It's actually gotten worse.
Yes.
But the other side, the numbers have gone up. Bigger, so again, it's been pointed out, it's been highlighted to death, and yet we continue to ignore it as if somehow it's going to. We're seeing our rights erode, right? If you're like the Supreme Courts have just said affirmative action is not needed. This country, everything is based on equality, and that, you know, if you just go in there and compete, you will be treated fairly, right? As if, you know, we live in this.
But that's the messed up thing, is like they say that you'll be treated fairly, and unfortunately, it's like even if we outperform them, somehow or another, they still end up getting the promotion.
But this is the point that I'm making, is that, you know, we know that that's not the truth, right? Yeah. We like in our broadcast, you know, Reverend Pastor Ryan, be true to what you said on paper, right? I tell people like this, and this is how I broke it down to someone one day, and I said, you know, we were at the Boston Marathon. I said, I'm not worried about competing fairly with you. I said, because I feel that my credentials will stack up, and my knowledge and my wherewithal, I'm okay with that. I said, I was talking to one of my white counterparts. I said, you notice the race? I said, when we all started at a fair, we all started in Hopkinton. Mm-hmm. I said, them brothers smoke y'all every time. Right? They smoke y'all every time because it's a fair race. I said, but if you get to start in Kenmore Square, I don't care how fast these brothers from Kenya are, they're never going to catch you. I said, so this is where we've been. And he's like, you know, Larry, I never looked at it like that. That yes, you have had an advantage because of generations of things being passed down, right? I was the first one in my family to own a home. My mom rented. She couldn't afford it with 7 kids. So yes, we're trying to break that cycle that our children have a leg up, right? But that's a small percentage. What you're doing with these with the other Cliff and Erica do, but that's not the norm.
I just want to point out this fact, okay? What was Harriet Tubman's biggest regret?
She said, "I could have freed more slaves." I have it on a T-shirt. I'm gonna wear it next week. And I could have freed more slaves. The mentality, if they only knew they were slaves.
We're talking about information and how do we get the information, but you can waterboard people with information, because I know I was when I was little with all the people that we had around us, but I wanted that information.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So how do we get them? You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So what do we need to do?
To get them to drink the water.
But the other thing is, you're right, and is that the communication is different today, right? Mm-hmm. Is that people hide behind tweets and texts and stuff like that. Like what we're doing now, this human contact, it doesn't happen. People will be in the same room,
and they're all on their phone. They're in the same car. Right. They're even in the restaurant eating together, but everyone's on the phone.
I've seen people sitting right next to each other on the train, and they're texting each other. I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
I see parents who if the few that pick up their kids, the kids are walking there, they're on their phone. I'm like, they're not even engaging them. How was your day? What happened? You know, what's your homework? You know, and I'm like, and usually it's nothing that they're talking about.
Yeah.
So again, I think we can't put the genie back in the bottle. Right? We are in crisis mode, gentlemen.
Yes, we are.
We are trying to be solution driven here. Cliff, you've got an event coming up. That's well, and we're going to come and participate in this.
Thank you very much.
And we believe in you. That's why. But again, Eric, like you said, when you have hundreds of jobs, trying to get folks to understand, Roge, you're out there trying to get people financially literate. We're here every weekend as much as we can, trying to educate folks, not try to sway them, but how do we, again, I think we're in a losing battle, gentlemen. Help me, encourage me.
Here's the crazy thing. Like, remember that they say that knowing is half the battle. So even if they do know it, if they don't take any action, if they don't do anything about it, it's like, it's applied knowledge.
Yeah.
It's not knowledge is power, but it's applied knowledge that is power. And
again, so let's try to strategize a plan. Let's go around the table here. This is at the round table with MAMLEO, right? Because Cliff is to my right. What would you recommend to folks listening to what we're saying here, trying to get jump started? One, they should come to your event. I agree. Exactly. And again, what's the takeaway that you expect them to take away from your event?
I think the takeaway is to know that we don't own nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have nothing,
mm-hmm.
and we need to get something.
Okay.
So if that don't wake you up, I don't know what will. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the initiative. Like my grandma used to say, if somebody won't do it for you, you do it yourself.
Well, that's saying closed mouths don't get fed, right?
Exactly.
So, Eric, how do we get the hundreds of jobs that go vacant that you're getting? How do we get those people engaged with the understanding that these jobs are necessary? It may not be the most desirable, it may not be the job you want, but it's a start in getting you. How do we get folks on board with what you're doing?
If I knew, I'd be a rock star in the consulting business, but I honestly don't know. I think what the problem is we need to get those people who we're trying to affect in here to talk about it. Let them come up with their own answers.
Okay.
Because we're here, we're doing it, but we're trying to find answers for people that we're trying to help. So let's get them in here and tell us what we need to do to help them.
Again, that's a solution. But again, there's a disconnect from folks understanding the severity and the importance of it, right? Is that how do we get that?
But let's start with some. I mean, we can't say the whole population is like that. There are some that want to, and so let them, because they're in the same age group or same situation, and if they're hearing it from people that are in their situation or their age group, they might listen.
Okay.
But I think instead of us always trying to find the answers for the people we're trying to support, let them provide the answers for themselves.
Good, great point. So, Rhodes, how do we get people more involved in the financial literacy that you are doing, that you're out there promoting, that is where, like I said, just having the basics of having a life insurance policy. We're all going to die.
All right.
No question. Like I said, the only thing guaranteed they said in life is death and taxes, and they tax you to death. So,
yes. So no, I will just say that for people to kind of like get out of that mindset of like being the poor mentality and actually look and trying to reset the mindset so they have a wealth and abundance mentality, so they can actually get out of the fear mindset and be able to open and learn new things.
To your point, I think people think you need to have a lot of money to get an insurance. It's actually cheaper to buy it when you're younger, right? Yes. And there are different insurance policies. There's term and whole. Maybe if you could just explain the difference between the two, if you could.
Term is like renting, and it'll go for a little bit. After a while, it goes away, and it's usually a very cheap form of insurance. The death benefit doesn't grow. There is no cash value. You can't borrow money from it or anything like that. But it's there, like for 20 or 30 years, you got a mortgage. You buy the life insurance policy, the term policy to cover the mortgage. Okay. Or you have your kids are 1 year old now. You want to make sure that if something happens between now and age 26, that all the finances for them to go to college or to be taken care of, like you would put that in the term policy, and then the whole life is something that stays like you're buying it. And the fact that the payment stays the same throughout the entire life of the policy, as long as you're paying into the policy. And there's different types of a whole life. There's some that are participating and some that are non-participating. The participating one, the death benefit grows, and so does the cash value. Okay. And you can borrow money from it. So, gentlemen, Eric raised a very good point there. But again, I find it very difficult because I work with a young segment of population in the schools, and it's unfortunate that there's been obstacles for getting to reach them. And I've always tried to mentor young people about real estate home ownership, and I encourage that. But
I'm seeing a disconnect. Even like in my profession, a lot of the younger officers don't see the value of talking to veterans until they get in trouble. Then they want all your wisdom, and even a little help with the financial problems they're in, right? So how do we get folks turned around from that mindset? And folks, feel free. How do we get folks to Eric's point? He's right, but I'm just seeing. I don't want to call it ignorance, but just a pushback. I know everything.
It really is by design. Like the people, like when you talk about money, when you talk about finances, people like, oh no, I already know. Oh, I don't need advice or whatever. Or I need to be rich to have a consultant or what have you.
Right, but to that point, like my ignorance when I was growing up, I thought a car was an investment. Until I bought one and then tried to trade it and realized it wasn't worth anywhere near what they.
It's an investment if it's a business purchase.
It's an investment if you're Ernie Bach.
Yeah, you plan on reselling it. Exactly.
Right. Exactly. But for people who are
just the retailer, like end user, whatever, no, because the price of the car is one thing, but the cost of ownership. So talking about gas, insurance, tolls, taxes,
but not in the excitement of it. Because after a month or two or whatever, the novelty wears off. Yeah. But the payments continue.
So, but if you actually calculate the cost of ownership of the car, like you think you only paid $40,000 or $50,000 for the car, but if you own the car for 10 years, brand new, you end up paying around $300,000 to $400,000 because of all the other added expenses.
So, gentlemen,
I think to go back to what you were saying, how do we think? I think we have to learn to meet them where they're at.
Right. Yeah.
And I tell you, Larry, you're in a really good place because you have this platform. And if you say to someone, hey, let's have a chat, a lot of the youth are skittish about that because it's one-on-one. But if you say, hey, come on my broadcast, I want to hear your opinion about this.
Well, this is not to cut, I'm going to let you finish, but this is where I need you guys to if you find those people, just like you guys coming here today, bring them in. Bring them in. Bring them in.
But with the age of podcasting, everybody's watching podcasts and stuff like that.
And this is where I lack that skill because I'm not a social media person.
But if you this is basically a podcast.
Yes,
it's a bigger version than a podcast. But if you let them know that they can reach this many people and come on here and talk about what they think the issues
what ails them.
Exactly. I believe they'll jump right on.
Well, listen,
people love talking about themselves.
It's an open invitation. We would love to, to do that. Like I said, we're always looking to inform, right, and educate, right? We're not here to criticize and chastise. We hope accountability. Like I tell people, constructive criticism is not chastising, holding people accountable because you start with yourself.
Right.
The fact that we're all up early on a Saturday morning, trying to educate the public, and folks are calling in. Dave, who his kids are, from East Boston, trying to help kids in Roxbury, is a huge commitment.
So we have the Academy of Broadcasting here during the week, and these are a bunch of teens that are.
Oh, you guys are still doing that?
We're still doing that, and this is why I was saying this would help us because I've heard them on the radio. They do a broadcast, and just even knowing some of the kids that are in there who I know from church who are very introverts, and then hearing them on the radio and they're just opening up.
Yeah.
I think that's.
No, you're right, because when I first started, I was not comfortable. I'm still learning the broadcast and learning, and it's funny because people listening will say, "Wow, you've really grown into what you do," and I'm like. This is easy. It's like at the kitchen table, except a microphone in front of you, right? And some mornings when it's coming here, you could smell breakfast coming, but coming downstairs. But I enjoy it because it allows me to break away from my norm and all of that, and to be able to have conversations, sit down with brothers like this. How often do we get to do this? We don't. Usually, it's just some tragedy or something in a negative. So it's good to. We got a few minutes. I want to give each one. We're going to go around the table. We got a couple of minutes on. Like I said, you guys have solutions, so we'll get a minute. We'll start with Rose and we'll close out with Cliff, so we can talk about his event. Any final parting remarks?
Just remember to take. Again, don't have fear. Just be open to learn and understand that every day you learn something new, and then finances is just a new chapter in your life, and it affects every aspect of your life.
It's not going away, right? It's not. The bills come every month.
Yes, they do, and it's like you want to be able to, like you said, mitigate those things.
And you control your own destiny.
Yeah.
Eric?
there's nothing wrong with having a job unless you want to just stay at that job, but a job will lead to learning how to run a business. That way you can run your own. And I wish we had more time because I would love to talk to you guys about family banks.
Okay. Well, the thing that's a future broadcast.
We definitely talk about that.
And you're right. You're talking about a job. There's a difference between a job and a career.
Yeah.
Most people are satisfied when they call a career. Like I've had a career in law enforcement and I've really enjoyed it. But I know if I'd had a job at some of my other ones, I'd have
You know
quit
what
a long
job
time.
stands for, right?
What's that?
Just above broke.
Oh, okay.
No, just over broke.
Just over broke. All
yeah.
right. And Cliff?
Come out to this event. It's going to be very important to me. Come out, young, old, and I hope to, Larry. I hope to see you. And
why you say that when you say old? All right, I hope to see
you. I'm just messing with you. But y'all my favorite people.
I couldn't let that slide. You talking about old? I hope you come out. We'll send a ride for me, Cliff.
Right. But in all seriousness, please, people, come out and support me because I need all the support I can get. So please come out. You'll have a good time and you'll learn a lot.
All right.
Come out and support yourself by coming out.
That's right. So getting it off my chest, a roundtable discussion about neighborhood change in Roxbury held at 122 DeWitt Drive, Boston, Mass, July 29th, 2023 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Enjoy a free pancake breakfast during the neighborhood discussion. Cliff Bennett is one of the sponsors, if not the sponsor of this event. I plan to be there with my old self.
You're not old, you're just young.
I will be there, walker permitting. I will be there in the house. This gentleman has been fantastic. We definitely have to make this a regular segment. I've enjoyed this tremendously. Awesome. Past Dr. Bradley, like I said, he's out getting tanned up. Rose got a big kick out of that.
He'll have a new tan next week.
That's right. Like some people spray on that hair. Dr. Bradley, he is in good shape. I love that brother. He knows that. Pastor Hobbs, thank you, sir, for another tremendous broadcast. Praise Engineering and Eric, thank you for pinch hitting here. Yeah. Thank you for all our listeners, our guests this morning. Again, you've been listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. It has been quite an honor to sit here and enjoy it this morning. I can't